to use this system have been made available on the dedicated observer seats on the ground floor of this plenary hall. Meeting documents are available on the INC 5.2 webpage. A live daily schedule is accessible via the Plastic Pollution Negotiations mobile app, as well as on the INC 5.2 website. Delegations are encouraged to download this app. The same schedule will appear on the electronic screens inside the venue. We wish to remind you that the Swiss Federal Council, the State Council of the Republic and Canton of Geneva, and the Executive Council of the City of Geneva will be hosting a welcome reception this evening from 6:15 p.m., which will be held directly behind this Assembly Hall in the Cour du Nord. Finally, a few words on our venue. The venue will be accessible between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. Members of the committee can access the venue via the Peace Gate between 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. daily. After 8 p.m., no entry is allowed, and exit is only possible via the Preny Gate. More detailed information can be found in the INC 5.2 information note for participants. The schedule for payment of DSA for funded delegates is available in the INC 5.2 information note for participants as well. The name of the open Wi-Fi network in the venue is the public Wi-Fi Wi-Fi-UNOG. Lunch breaks are scheduled every day from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. There are catering facilities in Building A and Building E. The list of the opening hours of each catering point is available in the INC 5.2 information note for participants, as well as in the mobile app under information. Delegates are reminded that food and drinks are strictly not allowed in any of the meeting rooms in this venue. Bottled water with the necessary precaution are permitted. The tap water in the venue is safe to drink and poses no health risks. Delegates can therefore use tap water to refill their bottles. A lost and found counter is located at the reception desk of Building E. This meeting is striving to be single-use plastics free. We call on you, delegates, to also do your part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, Secretariat. And this concludes our consideration of Agenda Item 1. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now resume its consideration of Agenda Item 3C on the organization of work. You will recall the committee considered Sub-Item 3B on the adoption of agenda for this session during the first part of the fifth session. The committee adopted the agenda for the session as contained in document UNEP/PP/INC.5/1, which has now been issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.1/1/Rev.1. The annotated agenda for the second part of the session has been issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.5/1/Rev.1/@.1. You will also recall that the committee considered Agenda Item 2 on the election of officers and elected a vice chair from the Asia-Pacific States Group. I'm pleased to inform you that at this stage there are no further developments under this agenda item. With that regard, the Agenda Item 3A on the adoption of the rules of procedure, you will recall that we also considered this item at the beginning of our session 5th, and there are no new developments under this item. I want to recall that in accordance with the decision of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee at its first session, the draft rules of procedure as set out in the document UNEP/PP/INC.5/3 continue to apply to its work on provisional basis, with the exception of the bracket text in Rule 37. You will also recall that at the second session, the committee decided to adopt the following interpretive statement relating to Rule 38, Paragraph 1, on the draft rules of procedure. The Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee understands that based on discussions on the draft rules of procedure for the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, there are differing views among Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee members on Rule 38, Paragraph 1, and its reflection in the report of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the work of its first session. Therefore, the provisional application of Rule 38, Paragraph 1 of the draft rules of procedure has been a subject of debate. In the event that Rule 38, Paragraph 1 is invoked before the rules are formally adopted, members will recall this lack of agreement. I trust that we will complete our work here in Geneva in a spirit of good faith and cooperation. I count on your support to ensure that we can work together constructively and effectively. Distinguished delegates, I will now outline the organization of work for the second part of the fifth session as contained in the scenario note for the resumed session issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.5/INF/13. Given the limited amount of time available to us at this resumed session for the completion of our negotiation process, it is essential that we organize our work with the aim to promoting a successful session that delivers on the mandate of UNEA Resolution 514. Our entire approach to the organization of our work must be guided by the objective of completing our negotiations by achieving agreement on the text of an international legally binding instrument and identifying any issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference. We should focus on bridging remaining gaps, resolving differences, and finding a common way forward in achieving agreement on the text of the instrument. The committee might also wish to consider reflecting in the report of the session any issues that might need to be considered by the Conference of the Party. I have been consulting with members, including through regular Bureau meetings and the informal heads of delegation meetings on 30 June to 2nd July 2025 and on July 18 on the most effective way to organize our work to support the finalization of the text of the instrument at this resumed session. Based on these consultations and our common objectives, I'm proposing the organization of work as follows. As you will recall, the committee agreed that the draft text circulated by the chair on 1st December last year will be used as the starting point for negotiation of the future instrument at the resumed session. This is without prejudice of the right of any member to propose additions, deletions, or modifications to the text during the session, and that the negotiations will be conducted on the basis of the principle of that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. I would therefore like to emphasize and make it clear from the outset that the starting point for the negotiations in the contact groups is the draft text that was circulated on 1st December. Distinguished delegates, let me first address the contact groups. As you will recall, during the first part of the session in Busan, the committee established 4 contact groups, each with a clear, defined mandate covering specific clusters of issues and appointed their respective co-chairs. I propose that these 4 contact groups continue their work at this resumed session. The mandates of the contact groups remain generally as agreed at the starting of our session in Busan, with one fine-tuning based on the consultations we had during the formal heads of delegation meeting and with the Bureau and as outlined in my scenario note. I have also noted in my scenario note that 2 of the co-chairs originally appointed in the first part of the session to facilitate the contact groups are no longer available to serve in this capacity. I wish to take this opportunity to extend my appreciation to Mr. Boachi of Ghana and Ms. Min Young of the Republic of Korea for their contribution to the work of the committee in their capacity as contact group co-chairs. After consultations, I propose that the committee appoint Mr. Peter Justice Derry of Ghana as co-chair of Contact Group 2, and Mr. Go Kobayashi of Japan as co-chair of Contact Group 4. Thus, the co-chairs of the contact groups will be as follows. Contact Group 1 will be co-chaired by Mr. Axel Borgman of Germany and Ms. Maria Angelica Ikeda of Brazil. Contact Group 2 will be co-chaired by Ms. Tulia Toika of Finland and Mr. Peter Derry of Ghana. Contact Group 3 will be co-chaired by Ms. Kate Lynch of Australia and Ms. Gwen Caesar of Palau. And Contact Group 4 will be co-chaired by Mr. Linroy Christian of Antigua and Barbuda and Mr. Go Kobayashi of Japan. I trust that you will join me in extending your full support to these co-chairs who will guide the contact group's work over the coming days. I hope this is agreeable to everyone. Thank you very much. I wish to congratulate, therefore, Mr. Derry of Ghana and Mr. Kobayashi of Japan on their appointment as co-chairs. Congratulations. I also wish to extend my appreciation to all the other co-chairs for continuing to undertake this important task of facilitating our negotiations. For all issues within their mandate, the contact groups will first, conduct textual negotiations and make proposals for consideration of the committee. And second, time permitting, and if needed, identify any issues where relevant for consideration by the diplomatic conference. I would like to emphasize that the priority of our work this week is delivering concrete negotiation outcomes to finalize the text of the instrument. In undertaking the work and negotiating the text, the contact groups should use the relevant sections of the draft text circulated on 1st December as the starting point, and as relevant, refer to any bridging text proposals that have been made by members. The contact groups will be expected to regularly make available the text produced during the next 4 days. The outcomes from the contact groups as of Friday, 8th of August, will be assembled by the Secretariat into a single document, which will be made available for the plenary on Saturday, 9th August, as a conference room paper. Our interim goal is to have an assembled document ready by Friday, and I expect everyone to work towards this objective. For this assembled document, each contact group will be expected to present draft text that is as clean as possible across the articles within this mandate. Having gone through several iterations of compilation text during INCs 3, 4, and 5.1, at this stage, collective ownership needs to be the guiding light. Work in the contact groups must move in line with advancing the development of text with a view of reaching an agreement by the end of the resumed session. For these purposes of this assembled document, the contact groups are expected to provide by Friday evening, 8 August, a text of which there is convergence that could be forwarded by the plenary to the legal drafting group. B, any text requiring further work and its status, as well as proposed ways forward for resolving differences. And C, where relevant, any issue to be raised by the committee to consideration by the diplomatic conference. I would like to emphasize that this assembled document will provide a snapshot of the status of the negotiations and will not be the final document. Therefore, I do not expect any textual negotiations on this assembled document at the stocktake plenary meeting on Saturday. For the stocktake plenary, I have three expectations. Firstly, that the committee will be in a position to transmit a number of articles to the legal drafting group with the understanding that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. Secondly, that the committee will not articles that have overall convergence but still require some refinement before they can be transmitted to the legal drafting group. Lastly, that the committee will take note of the few articles with remaining open issues. With this in mind, I expect the committee will then be able to determine the most appropriate modalities of work to enable us to focus on critical issues and make the necessary progress to finalize the text. Each contact group should have the flexibility to organize its work in the most effective manner possible to foster convergence and further development the draft text of the instrument across all areas within its mandate. It will also be important to ensure a degree of consistency in the method of work across the contact groups. I request the co-chairs to provide clarity at the outset of their approach to the conduct of their work. To ensure that textual negotiations can progress as effectively as possible in the contact groups, it is important that the co-chairs actively facilitate the further development of texts, and it is also important that the text coming from the contact group to the plenary should have shared ownership by the group. Active engagement among members themselves, including through informal consultations to facilitate dialogue, explore solutions, and formulate possible landing zones, is essential. Any proposal presented during this resumed session should be focusing on areas where open issues remain and should be aimed at bridging gaps and facilitating convergence. Members wishing to present such a bridging proposals for consideration in the relevant contact group are strongly encouraged to submit them jointly and after consultations with other members. For bridging proposals to be considered, they also need to be presented orally and negotiated in the contact groups. Bridging proposals might be submitted on the in-session document platform. As informed by the Secretariat, in the in-session document platform will open this morning and will close by close of business on Thursday, 7th of August. Contact groups should have the flexibility to resort to different working modalities as needed, including through informal settings, to develop texts that will bridge positions to achieve solutions. Any outcomes of such an informal work by members should be reported to the contact groups in full for its consideration. I'm aware that there are several cross-cutting issues that are related to a number of articles. I encourage contact groups to coordinate on such issues, including through the co-chairs and, when appropriate, in consultations with me, the chair. Turning now to the legal drafting group, I would like to remind delegates that this open-ended group established at our fourth session remains in place. Its mandate is to conduct a review of the draft text forward to it by the Committee for Legal Soundness and Consistency, and to provide recommendations on the wording without reopening substantive policy discussions. The committee also agreed that in its work, the legal drafting group will not consider policy issues, and any policy issues it might identify in the course of its work will be referred back to the committee. The meetings of the legal drafting group will be convened by the co-chairs, Ms. Annick Baudouin of Canada, Mr. Jean Kenfag of Cameroon, and Mr. Eyad Al-Hubra of Saudi Arabia, as and when needed to consider draft text referred to it by the committee. I would like to remind delegates that the legal drafting group is not a negotiating body, nor is it a decision-making body. What the group does is present recommendations on the legally sound wording for consideration by the committee in plenary. It is ultimately the committee that agrees on text. We should endeavour to refer draft text as early as possible to the legal drafting group. I, therefore, invite contact groups, when working on the text during the next several days, to flag in their reports to the plenary any provision that they consider sufficiently developed to be reviewed by the legal drafting group. I want to emphasize that forwarding text for legal review does not imply that this text is fully agreed. As always, we are guided by the principle that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. On the schedule for this resumed session, the overall plan for the week is annexed to my scenario note and has been published on the session website. 2 or more contact groups might also agree to jointly discuss matters within their respective mandates as needed. During our plenary meeting on Saturday morning, 9 August 2025, we will need to collectively take stock in light of the outcomes of the contact group's work in the first 4 days and assess the progress made. With that, we will consider any adjustments to the modalities of work to allow us to focus on avenues and options to achieve agreement on open issues. At this meeting on Saturday, each contact group will be expected to report on any draft text that could be referred to the legal drafting group and on the state of play of any outstanding issue within its mandate. I wish to reiterate that no more than 2 contact groups meetings will be scheduled in parallel. In addition, a schedule for days 1 to 4 has been published, while specific time periods are proposed to be tentatively allocated for meetings of each of the 4 contact groups up to including day 3, 7 August 2025. The exact schedule will need to be reviewed as negotiation progress to reflect the actual needs of each contact group on a daily basis. I have had numerous consultations on the schedule for this resumed session with members and regions. Based on those consultations, I have strived to allocate time in balanced manner across all contact groups. This schedule of contact groups meetings will be updated daily and made available on the website and through the app in the evening of the previous day. The next plenary is currently scheduled for Saturday, 9th of August. At this point, we might need to consider any adjustments to the modalities of work to allow us to focus on avenues and options to achieve agreement on open issues. There will also be the opportunity for plenary meetings to be convened over the course of the week as needed. Sunday, 10th August, is a reserved day without any formal meetings to allow for informal consultations among members. I encourage members to utilize this time to continue their informal dialogues and bridging proposals. I also encourage regions to make use of this time to consult amongst themselves and identify solutions to the remaining open issues. The schedule for Monday 11th through Thursday 14th of August will be developed over the course of the resumed session, taking into account the progress achieved to allow us to focus on outstanding issues to finalize the resumed sessions successfully. Under Agenda Item 4, I will also like to propose that during the plenary on Thursday, 14 August 2025, the committee considers the text of the instrument with a view of its formal approval. Next, let me outline the indicative plan for the remaining agenda items. Next, let me outline the indicative plan for the remaining agenda items. It was good with the water. In the plenary of Thursday, 14 of August, we will also consider Agenda Item 5 on other matters. Should there be any issue that the committee might wish to refer for the consideration of the diplomatic conference for its consideration, this can be addressed under this agenda item. I will also invite the Executive Director of UNEP to inform the committee on the next steps regarding the diplomatic conference under this agenda item. Further, under this agenda item, I will invite the Secretariat to present the practice on how approved texts of treaties are reviewed for minor editorial adjustments, as well as the process through which all language versions can be verified. Should any member wish to raise any other matters under this item, I invite you to inform me at this plenary meeting. During the plenary meeting on Thursday, 14 of August, the committee will also consider Agenda Item 6 on the adoption of the report of this session. You will recall that at the end of the first part of the fifth session, the committee adopted the report for the first part of the session contained in document UNEP/PP/INC.5/8 on the basis of the draft report that had been circulated, on the understanding that the committee will be invited to adopt the remainder of the report once drafted and circulated to all members at the resumed fifth session. In this connection, the committee will be invited to consider and adopt the remainder of the report of the work of the first part of the fifth session under this agenda item and the draft report for the second part of the session. capturing the early parts of the proceedings and discussions during the resumed session. Finally, on Thursday, 14 August, the committee will consider Agenda Item 7 at the closing of the session. I believe that this mode of operation, built on the basis of discussions in the Bureau, dialogues with members, including in the informal heads of delegation meetings, will allow us to be most productive over the next 10 days. I take it that we can proceed together with the approach just outlined. Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. سيدي الرئيس، لدي مداخلة باسم المجموعة العربية حول آلية العمل. السيد الرئيس، لجنة التفاوض الدولية الحكومية.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If you could allow us 1 minute to change the language here. How do we do that? This one here? Okay. Okay. Please continue. I'm sorry for that.
السيد الرئيس، لجنة التفاوض الدولية الحكومية وأصحاب السعادة، من دواعي سروري أن أتحدث باسم مجموعة الدول العربية المكونة من 22 دولة تمثل ما يزيد عن 480 مليون نسمة. في البداية نؤكد التزامنا الراسخ بالتفويض التي حددته الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة للبيئة في قرار 514، والذي يوحدنا في الهدف المشترك المتمثل في التعامل مع تحدي التلوث البلاستيكي. إن هذا القرار يشكل أساس عملنا ويعترف بالظروف الخاصة للدول النامية وقدراتها ومستويات تنميتها المختلفة، كما يؤكد مبدأ المسؤوليات المشتركة ولكن المتباينة بين الدول المتقدمة والنامية، وذلك في الظروف الوطنية المختلفة على النحو المنصوص عليه في إعلان ريو. فيما يخص تنظيم العمل، السيد الرئيس، نود أن نعرب عن قلقنا من إدراج المادة السادسة ضمن جدول أعمال المجموعة الأولى للاتصال في الجلسة الأولى، وذلك على الرغم من الدعوات المتكررة من العديد من الدول بما في ذلك بعض مؤيدي هذه المادة أنفسهم لتأجيل مناقشاتها إلى وقت لاحق خلال الدورة. وقد تكرر هذا الطلب مؤخرا خلال الاجتماع الافتراضي لرؤساء الوفود. ورغم أننا لا نتفق بالضرورة مع هذا القرار في الجدولة، فإننا نحترم تقدير السيد الرئيس وسنشارك بشكل بناء في المناقشات. ومع ذلك نؤكد أنه إذا لم يتم التوصل إلى حل بشأن هذه المسألة، فإننا نحث اللجنة على الانتقال السريع إلى مواضيع أخرى بدلاً من الاستمرار في مناقشة مسائل يوجد حولها تباين واضح في وجهات النظر. ويمكن معالجة القضايا الخلافية بشكل أفضل في اجتماعات غير رسمية بدلاً من مناقشتها في مجموعات الاتصال نفسها. وينبغي أن نصب تركيزنا على ضمان بداية سلسلة وبناء للجلسات التفاوضية في هذه المرحلة الحاسمة وبناء الثقة مع جميع الأطراف. أخيراً، نود أن نؤكد على الحاجة إلى وجود آلية واضحة وشفافة لتنظيم الجلسات الغير رسمية. فعلى الرغم من أن الجلسات الغير رسمية التي تعقدها الأطراف يمكن أن تلعب دورا مفيدا، إلا أن العدد المفرط منها أو افتقارها إلى تنظيم قد يثقل على كاهل الوفود، خاصة تلك الوفود التي لديها عدد محدود من الأعضاء، وقد لا تكون دائما فعالة أو شاملة. لذلك نحث على إدارة الجلسات غير الرسمية بعناية مع تحديد أهداف واضحة وجدول مناسب وتوفير فرصة لجميع الأطراف للمشاركة بشكل هادف. كما تود مجموعة الدول العربية أن تتقدم بطلب أن تنتهي جميع اجتماعات مجموعات الاتصال في موعد أقصاه الساعة 9 مساءً، والذي يعد أمرا بالغا في الأهمية خاصة بالنسبة للوفود ذات عدد المحدود من الأعضاء، حيث تواجه تحديات كبيرة في الحفاظ على المشاركة الفعالة خلال الجلسات المطولة. إن تحديد ساعات عمل معقولة أمر ضروري لضمان جودة المفاوضات وتحقيق مشاركة عادلة وشاملة لجميع الوفود، ونشجع جميع الأطراف على دعم هذا النهج حتى نتمكن من تحقيق أفضل النتائج الممكنة لهذه المفاوضات الهامة. إن مجموعة الدول العربية على أتم استعداد للمشاركة بشكل بناء، ساعية لتحقيق معاهدة متوازنة وشاملة وفعالة تحقق فرقا ملموسا على أرض الواقع لصالح جميع شعوبنا. شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
I thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. I now give the floor to Ghana. Please, Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I make this intervention on behalf of the African Group of Negotiators. Africa has requested multiple times for contact groups 1 and 3 not to meet or run simultaneously. Although the largest UN group, Africa remains a region of multiple small delegations, underfunded and overstretched. In the spirit of inclusivity and transparency, we demand our requests be taken into account and the schedule be adjusted accordingly to ensure that contact groups 1 and 3 do not meet simultaneously. Indeed, the AGN is unable to participate in the contact group discussions if this issue is not resolved. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you very much, Ghana. Now I would like to give the floor to Marshall Islands, please.
I accidentally pressed the button, Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry for that mistake. And now Angola, please. No, it's a mistake too. Something is happening. Let me check with the Secretariat because I have a list of speakers here, and well, we will check immediately. Yeah. Now the list of speakers is gone. Sorry for that. I thank you very much, and I thank you very much for your comments and also for the constructive way that you are approaching to this session. We have worked actually quite hard on those schedules and trying to find the perfect balance and perfect weight also in sequencing the different articles. That's why we are presenting the schedule for the 2 first days, and as I have mentioned before, with the flexibility given in the contact groups also to discuss about this. What I will propose is to take the schedule as we have presented, and we will review and take, of course, into consideration the comments and also the proposals that you have presented from the African group to for the days after this the work, starting from day 3, and also we reconsider the schedule for tomorrow, actually for day 2, depending also seeing what you mentioned of not having those 2 contact groups at the same time, 1 and 3. So may I take that we could go on on the schedule as it has been presented. Thank you very much. Ghana, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I do want to remind you that this request was made during the heads of delegations meeting because there was the same challenge. And I do recall that in plenary, you gave us your word that the co-facilitators will handle it during the contact group discussions. It never happened. It never happened, and the two groups met simultaneously. May I kindly request, Chair, that we get a resolution to this before we move into contact groups. I thank you.
And I thank you very much, Ghana. Yes, I think we can revise. Let me just give me some minutes to do so, and I come back to you. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and thank you very much to the African group. My task as chair is also to give these possibilities and as a principle guiding our negotiations that you members feel comfortable in these negotiations and also in the contact groups. So we are working and we have a proposal. So contact group 1 and 3 won't meet at the same time. Instead, it will be contact group 2 and 3 meeting at the same time, and then contact group 1 and 4 meeting at the same time. So we change 3 for 4 today and also tomorrow. I hope that that will be agreeable for everyone. Iran, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Iran, have you asked for the floor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Please, you have the floor.
Good morning, colleagues. Since this is the first time that we have the floor, we wish to appreciate you and also the INC Secretariat as well as the government of Switzerland for giving us another opportunity to sit together and try to resolve the outstanding issues with the hope that we could conclude these negotiations in this conference. Since a part of my concerns have been raised previously by distinguished speakers of African Group, Ghana, and also Saudi Arabia, I do not repeat them, and thank you very much for the resolution of simultaneously contact group meetings. My suggestion is with respect to diplomatic conference and the references for raising some issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference. Since the issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference should be limited to the areas agreed upon during INC 5.2, which need to be highlighted in the draft resolution. And such issues shall in no way determine any agenda, including the discussion on substantial issues between the diplomatic conference and the first COP meeting of the future instrument, and or prejudge the first COP decision on its priority areas of work, including establishment of any subsidiary bodies, annexes, list of possible products and substances, targets, and timelines. So the diplomatic conference should be of ceremonial nature and nothing more than it. And we expect that we can stick to this understanding, since this is exactly the language of Article 12 of the Union Resolution 5/14, which only requests the Executive Director to convene a diplomatic conference for the purpose of adopting the instrument and opening it for signature. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to Iran. Now I would like to give the floor to the United States of America. The U.S., please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Let me start by expressing my thanks to you, Chair, and also to UNEP for all the work you've done in advance of this meeting to get us prepared. I just wanted to ask for a little bit of clarification. So with respect to the proposal to swap the organization of the contact groups, I maybe just have a couple questions about this. In principle, to us, we're actually quite flexible. The issue is we prepared for the meeting using the scenario note proposed, as we understood it, by the chair, and endorsed, we had understood, in the Bureau meetings. And thus, we have brought a team here that is actually prepared, and we have certain people that bounce in between contact groups that have prepared for the meeting and the negotiations with the particular pairing that had been proposed for us to use at the meeting. So we're going to need just a couple of minutes. We just need a little bit of time here to actually think through what this means. As I said, I don't think, in principle, this wouldn't have been a problem for us, but it's not the way that we prepared for the meeting, precisely because it's not the way that had been proposed. So that's the first thing. We need just a couple minutes to sort through this. Secondly, Chair, I would actually like to hear and understand better from you, to have a more detailed readout of what it was that the Bureau did in taking up this issue. So normally the Bureau is the group that we as the parties, as the member states, entrust with working through the organizational details like this. The Bureau has regional representation, and so the idea is that the Bureau comes together, there should be regional buy-in, not on substance, but as it relates to having a good, clear, agreed process that everybody understands moving forward. rather than say what we're doing right now, which is debating the actual processes and organization of contact group schedules in the plenary session. In fact, to us, that's the fundamental and core task of the Bureau for efficiency, to be able to organize ourselves using the structure of the Bureau. So perhaps could I, as we take a moment internally in our delegation to talk about how we are reorganizing ourselves, much like the Africa group said, this current schedule presents some problems to them. Just to be honest, we would have expected that to be raised in the Bureau, debated there, and it would have been much easier to try to find solutions to this issue in the Bureau itself, which to us is the actual purpose of the Bureau. So I'd specifically request, Chair, that you provide us some flavor of what went on in the Bureau that has led us to where we are. And this delegation and perhaps others will then have a few minutes to sort of give a little bit of consideration to this proposal to change the organization from what we expected coming into this meeting. And then finally, Chair, could I ask you to please clarify specifically, I had heard Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Arab group make a suggestion with respect to Article 6. Could you please clarify, and it was a procedural related request as I understood it, if I could ask you to please clarify our path forward on that. Thank you.
And I thank you, the U.S., the United States. Now I give the floor to Iraq. Yes.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. إن وفد بلادي يسعده في البدء تقديم خالص التقدير والامتنان لجهودكم المبذولة في قيادة هذا العمل المهم بطريقة مميزة ولفريقك المميز. كما يسعدني أن أتقدم بالشكر والتقدير لدولة سويسرا لجهودهم المبذولة واستضافتهم الكريمة لهذا الاجتماع المهم ولكل التسهيلات المقدمة للوفود المختلفة. ولا يسعني إلا الثناء على جهود الإعداد المتميزة والتحضير المتفاني لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للبيئة وللأمانة الموقرة لهذا الاجتماع ولكل المساعدات المقدمة لنا وللوفود الموقرة جميعا. في الوقت الذي يود فيه وفد بلادي دعم البيان المقدم باسم المجموعة العربية من قبل المملكة العربية السعودية، وخصوصا فيما يتعلق بالبند السادس من نصكم الكريم، والذي حسب رأينا لا يتضمن مضمونا يمكن له أن يصب في عنوان البند، وهو تحقيق استدامة الاستهلاك والإنتاج. وإن وفد بلادي يود أن يؤكد استعداده للعمل بشكل جاد وأن الوفد بلادي حريص جدا أن نصل خلال اجتماعنا هذا إلى اتفاق قوي وكافي لمعالجة مشكلة التلوث البلاستيكي يتضمن بنودا متوازنة ومسؤوليات وأدوار مشتركة، وذلك لا يمكن التحقيق بدون التحلي بروح من المرونة والواقعية وعدم التمسك بأحكام ليس لها مساس حقيقي في جوهر قضية التلوث البلاستيكي. نحن هنا جميعا نتشارك هدفا واحدا، ويجب أن تسقط خلافاتنا عند الوصول لحدوده. مبادئ مهمة كمبدأ الحق السيادي في استغلال الموارد الطبيعية لكل دولة والمسؤولية المشتركة ولكن المتباينة بين الدول النامية والمتقدمة هي مبادئ تنير لنا الطريق لو أردنا تحقيق النجاح، وهكذا فعل الذين قد سبقونا. سأترك سيد الرئيس مداخلات الفنية لوفد بلادي لغرض عرضها خلال مجاميع الاتصال المختلفة. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
And I thank you, Iraq. And now I will give the floor to Senegal. Please, Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, chers tous. La délégation commence d'abord par remercier la Suisse de tous ses efforts et d'avoir accueilli en un laps de temps donc, cette importante réunion dont nous pensons qu'on va avoir un succès ici à Genève. Nous nous rallions aussi à la déclaration du Ghana faite au nom du groupe africain concernant les contacts groupes 1 et 3 en même temps. Les États-Unis ont raison de poser cette question et de se référer au bureau. Et c'est pour cela que nous prenons la parole aussi en tant que représentants de l'Afrique au bureau. Ça a été très bien posé au bureau après qu'une lettre du Ghana eut été écrite au secrétariat et au chair. Donc quand l'Afrique écrit aussi et quand l'Afrique présente ses points au bureau, nous souhaitons que tout cela soit respecté. Et je pense que c'est une bonne approche qu'on va retenir que quand des délégués représentant leur groupe prennent la parole et expriment les inquiétudes, que ces inquiétudes-là soient prises en compte. Donc ce n'est pas le lieu ici de le faire, ça aurait pu être réglé depuis très longtemps. Mais nous acceptons la proposition d'avoir les contacts groupes comme le chair l'a présenté pour que ça puisse remplacer le contacts groupe 1 et 3 qui doivent se tenir en même temps. Donc merci.
I thank you very much. Senegal. I thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your comments. It has taken us 3 years to come here to Geneva, and we are few days to make history and to start working as soon as possible to make that possible. About the organization of work, it has been brought to the Bureau. We've been working together with the Bureau about the organization of work for this resume session. It was also presented a draft scenario note to the members of the Bureau, also to work on that clear picture, so to say, for this session. Based on those discussions, prolonged meetings also with the Bureau on organization of work, the Secretariat and I will work on the schedule that we have presented. We have received also, and thank you very much to the African group and from Ghana, the coordination, their proposals, and the proposals could be adjusted with too much moving of the schedules because we are moving the provisions that were going to be considered the same day for today and tomorrow. And that's the proposal, so we adjust in that sense. So Group 1 and Group 3 won't meet at the same time. And that also could apply for tomorrow. And it's the same. Tomorrow is just to change, to swap 2 of the contact groups, to have to take the proposal from Africa, not to meet at the same time 1 and 3. About Article 6 and any other provision that we are going to deal with in the contact groups, we have to give it the chance of negotiation. We have to start from some place. And my proposal, as you have seen in the scenario note, is that we cover all provisions in these 4 days, all provisions. And I have mentioned also in my remarks here in plenary that any issue that will require extra discussions, also the contact groups and the co-chairs of the contact groups will have that flexibility to identify the need of an informal setting to start working with those specific issues. So having said that, I will also add that We will keep working. We are meeting the Bureau every day, on a daily basis, to assess, to evaluate our progress, and accordingly to work also on the organization of work, including also the schedule. There are different alternatives the moment you want to allocate the different articles. And difficult. It's not easy to find the perfect one. Of course, there will be issues here and there. But of course, we can work together with the Bureau in that regard. So having said that, once again, I will propose to change to swap actually contact group 4 with contact group 2 today and tomorrow, so contact group 1 and 3 don't meet together. So I could, where is it? Oh, 2 and 3. No. So the schedule for today could be, if you agreed, that 2 and 3 work at the same time, parallelly, this morning, and 1 and 4 works in the afternoon, and in the evening will be 2 and 3 today. And tomorrow will be in the morning 1 and 4. In the afternoon will be contact group 2 and 3. And in the evening, it will be here, 1 and 4 tomorrow. Once again, I ask for your flexibility and constructiveness to accept this and move into the negotiation contact groups where we can also raise our ideas, our suggestions on these matters. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. As it's the first time that I take the floor, may I thank you, the UNEP Secretariat, and the Government of Switzerland for having us here for this final round of our negotiations. We are always very supportive, as we have always been, of requests made by smaller delegations from developing countries, especially when it comes to having a schedule that would accommodate their need in terms of representation, and the fact that having less delegates that are able to participate in some discussions lead us to having some reforms or changes in our schedule that would best accommodate them. Brazil has always defended consensus as a mode of work here in the INC and elsewhere, and we believe that the best way to achieve consensus is to be very inclusive and to have all delegations as possible in all our discussions. We're also mindful of the fact that it was pointed out by another delegation that there might be a need to have some time in order to reorganize the work of each delegate. So, of course, I think we can always make room for that as well. But just to say that we support not only your decision, but the request from the African group. What I would propose further, in order for us, because this is already a change, so people will have to adapt to it, that we don't change the order of provisions in each contact group, because then we would be creating a lot of havoc. So I understand that the only thing that we are changing here is just having contact groups 1 and 4 meeting at the same time, and 2 and 3, but not changing the order of provisions that we will be discussing in each contact group. I also support what you said about giving the opportunity for all contact groups to discuss all provisions. I think this will be very much needed. And there was one delegation that mentioned that it is important that everybody has access to the information about informals where members will participate. We believe that it's important that all members are able to participate in all informals that are scheduled, it is difficult to anticipate each and every member's interests in specific articles, so it's better just to keep it open for delegations and having this information available for everybody. I would then probably recommend that the best way to do this is via the app, and also have the reformed schedule as we decided upon now to be also available in the app so that we can all follow this on an equal basis. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much. Brazil? I can see in the list the United States. Would you like to take the floor again? The U.S.? Please.
Yes,
please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick points. I think the first is, having had a few moments to think about it, we are okay with changing the pairing of the contact group, so this delegation can be flexible on that. I would just make two other points, I think. So I understand essentially you are now pairing, your pairs are contact group 2 and 3 together, and then 1 and 4 together. Just to say for us, and probably for some other delegations, that means we're changing how we're deploying our personnel. So our preference would be throughout the week and the negotiations that we continue to pair them in the same way, if you see what I mean. So I did just want to say that. I know you're not deciding the entire schedule of the week here, but if we start switching them back or changing the pairings, it once again, I think, is sort of disruptive to the coverage. But we're flexible in terms of how you move forward with this. I also appreciate your comment about the Bureau, but just that would be my final comment, as it would be our expectation that in the future that the Bureau is able to sort out. I believe that's what you just said a few moments ago, Chair, but to talk about this scheduling, to work it out in the Bureau rather than having the debate in the plenary itself. And that was the point that I was making before, but I just wanted to emphasize that. I think it's a much more efficient and frankly appropriate way for us to proceed, because in fact that's why we agreed to establish the Bureau in the first place. Thank you, Chair.
And I thank you very much to the U.S. for your flexibility. Thank you very much. And also we will be working with the Bureau, as I mentioned. I can see in my list Trinidad and Tobago. Please, Trinidad and Tobago, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And regarding the matter on the revision of the scheduling, as a small team, we have organized our work and internal coordination based on the previously agreed schedule. Each member of our 2-person delegation has been assigned to follow specific contact groups and thematic areas accordingly. Any substantive changes to this structure at this stage presents very logistical and strategic challenges for us, as it disrupts our ability to effectively engage and contribute to the negotiations. We therefore request that due consideration be given to the operational realities faced by these small delegations, and urge that we maintain the consistency of the schedule to allow for meaningful and effective negotiations. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, thank you very much, dear colleagues. And thank you also for your flexibility, your comments, all of them, of course, we need to take into account to keep working that way, in that constructive way during this session 5.2. So with that change, and I think with that swap of the contact groups, not the provisions, of course, I can take it this as, okay, you are fine with that? I hear no objections, then it is so decided. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, the committee has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 3C on organization of work. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now consider Agenda Item 4 on the preparation of the international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. As I mentioned earlier, I invite members from regional groups and groups of members to submit any statements in writing through the INC in session document platform, which is now available, as I said. Sorry. Yes, sorry for that. Thank you very much. As I noted in my scenario note, opportunities for observers' interventions in the formal intergovernmental process is limited. After statements by regional groups and groups of members, 30 minutes will be allocated to hear from observers representing different broad constituencies, and the online document platform also will be available for observers to share written statements. I will now open the floor for statements from observers, starting with intergovernmental organizations, followed by UN system entities, and followed by non-governmental organizations. Please, and I say please, limit your statements to 2 minutes. We have put in place a dedicated quoting system for observers. Introductions on how to use this system have been made available on the dedicated observer seats on the ground floor of the plenary hall. Please follow these instructions if you wish to request for the floor, and feel free to approach any of the Secretariat staff in the room if you require assistance. Once again, please keep your intervention short and focused. As I mentioned previously, observers speaking for alliances, coalitions, and groups will be given priority. I see on the list the International Chamber of Commerce, and will be mic 16. Please, you have the floor. ICC. We will go to the next speaker. That is the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, mic 51. Microphone, please. It's mic 51.
Thank you, Chair. The catastrophic human rights impacts of a sustainable and principled plastic production are undeniable and pose an unacceptable risk. In its recent advisory opinion on climate change, the International Court of Justice found that states have a duty to prevent significant harm to the environment now and in the future. An ambitious treaty addressing the full life cycle of plastics must advance human rights, including the right to a healthy environment. This can be achieved through, first, a just transition that upholds human rights and benefits people disproportionately affected by plastic production and pollution, control of chemicals of concern in plastics, and safeguards against substitutions, reduction targets for plastic production, and addressing legacy pollution, mandatory disclosure of health and safety information related to plastic production, equitable and affordable access by all states to the environmentally sustainable technologies with robust mechanisms to protect scientific inquiry against conflict of interest. And lastly, a transparent and adequately resourced financial mechanism to support equitable implementation of the treaty. The Plastic Treaty should reflect human rights obligations by explicitly integrating them in Article 10 on just transition. The human right to participation must also be upheld at INC 5.2. It is necessary that decisions are made in a transparent, inclusive and accountable manner with the participation of observers. Delegates here today have the historic chance to design measures to end plastic pollution, advance sustainable development and uphold human rights. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, and I ask please the speakers to keep their statements within 2 minutes. Now I'd like to give the floor to the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution, and it's mic 52.
Thank you, Chair. I'm taking the floor on behalf of the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution, coordinated by ICLEI, the government of Quebec and the government of Catalonia, the Global Cities Hub, and more than 100 signatories. The role and objectives of the coalition are clear since the very beginning of the INC process. We express a strong commitment towards the adoption of an ambitious international instrument on plastic pollution that must include the essential role of local and subnational governments as key actors. The instrument needs a whole of government and whole of society approach. We are at the forefront of combating plastic pollution. We have in-depth knowledge of local issues and often have specific regulatory powers and the ability to enhance implementation and enforce actions. Therefore, the future instrument needs to have a clear recognition of local and subnational governments. This is why we welcome the inclusion of local and subnational governments in Article 8 and 12 of the Chair's text. The Waste Management, Article 8.2, highlights the role of the subnational level in addressing plastic pollution. And the Capacity Building and Multi-Level Cooperation, Article 12.2, explicitly mentions local and subnational governments as partners of national governments. We have proposed additional language, which is available on the platform in annex to this statement. It is also critical that the future Secretariat of the instrument is mandated and resourced to work directly with local and subnational governments, not only through national challenges. This will be vital for building capacity, coordinating action and ensuring consistent implementation. So, here our closing message. we urge negotiators to maintain and strengthen the role of local and subnational governments in the final text. And we call for the future Secretariat to be enabled to work directly with them, not just as implementers, but as partners in co-creating solutions. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the Youth Plastic Action Network, Mike 40.
Thank you, Chair. We speak on behalf of the Youth Plastic Action Network, a global platform for youth engagement in the plastics treaty process. From day one, our message has been simple and urgent. We need a treaty that protects human health, our shared ecosystems, and the rights of future generations. At this decisive moment, there is no middle ground. We either conclude with a strong, scientific-driven treaty that addresses the full life cycle of plastics, or we report back to UNEA that we have collectively failed to deliver on Resolution 5-14. Plastic pollution may not kill instantly, but it's already costing our lives and futures. Today, children are born with microplastics in their blood, and microplastics are already being found in fish that are sold on grocery store shelves. If we fail to deliver the treaty, healthcare systems will be strained under rising cancers and toxic exposures. Billions will be spent managing pollution instead of preventing it, and oceans could hold more plastic than fish, collapsing coastal economies and food securities. Entire industries risk becoming stranded as we delay the transition to a clean industry.
Plastic pollution does not respect borders or generations. A weak treaty will not protect any country from the social, economic, and environmental consequences that are to follow. Many of you will not see that world, but we, the children and youth of today, your children and your grandchildren will. We will inherit governments that failed to act when they could, societies burdened by pollution and debt, and planetary resources pushed beyond repair. We call on member states, seize this moment, commit to binding reduction targets, embed human rights and intergenerational equity throughout the treaty, and build strong financial mechanisms for implementation and capacity building. Stand with ambition. Deliver the treaty that the world desperately needs and the future deserves. Thank you.
I thank you very much for your intervention to Youth Plastic Action Network. Please, now I would like to give, thank you please, I would like to give now the floor to Women's Working Group of Ending Plastic Pollution, and it will be Mike 5.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends, I'm Rabeb Alwi from Tunisia, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Women Working Group on Ending Plastic Pollution. We gather here in Geneva today with a shared mission to end plastic pollution, but we must be honest that this is not an environmental crisis, it's a human health emergency, and it is a justice issue. Scientific studies now confirm that microplastics have been found in human placentas on both the maternal and the fetal sites. They have also been detected in newborns' forced vomit. Exposure begins before birth, and its consequences may last a lifetime. This is not an abstract. This is personal. This is generational. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by plastic pollution through caregiving roles, informal labor, and daily use of products containing toxic additives. Endocrine disrupting chemicals in plastics are damaging reproductive health, increasing infertility, and other endocrine diseases, as well as contributing to children being born with disabilities. These are lived realities. And yet, in the current non-paper, gender equality and women's rights are barely mentioned. We must ask, how can we build a treaty that protects people if it doesn't name those most affected? We urge this Assembly to take bold, binding action and to call for a human rights-based approach to the treaty, limit on plastic production, and a ban on chemicals and polymers of concern. Restriction on internally added microplastic, including in cosmetics and cleaning supplies, a global harmonized system of chemicals transparency and traceability, design criteria that eliminate harmful substances, a dedicated financial mechanism to support global.
I thank you very much for your intervention, for your statement. Dear colleagues, now I would like to give the floor to the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastic Pollution, and it is mic 55.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Abraham Francis of the Ganyankahaga, and I speak on behalf of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics, the representative voice of Indigenous peoples within these negotiations. We are disappointed in the absence of meaningful references to and affirmation of the rights of Indigenous peoples within the Chair's text, and propose immediate action to address this critical oversight. We call on states to affirm and actively promote Indigenous peoples' rights, including our right to self-determination, ensuring the full, effective, equitable, and direct participation of Indigenous peoples in decision-making and implementation of the treaty, as collective rights holders, not to be conflated with other stakeholders as affirmed within the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Strong measures across the full life cycle, including phasing down fossil fuel extraction and production of plastics and chemicals. Center human health, planet health, and justice for all harmed communities across the plastic life cycle, including just transition and development and implementation of the National Action Plan. Establish financial mechanisms to ensure justice and enable just and equitable transition. Establish an independent expert advisory body to inform treaty implementation that ensures the equitable and ethical participation of Indigenous peoples and knowledge holders. For millennia, Indigenous people have lived our lives in balance with the natural world, establishing and practicing non-toxic, truly circular, and life-giving systems. Our ancestral wisdom and knowledge systems offer vital solutions to the plastics crisis, including other environmental crises, addressing its entire life cycle from extraction to disposal. Thank you.
And I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the to the Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastic Treaty, mic 58.
The Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastics Treaty are 450 independent experts from 65 countries. 58 of us are here because we're concerned that the misrepresentation of the science of plastic pollution by some will result in a treaty that is unable to protect our planet and future generations from plastic pollution. So today we reiterate where the scientific evidence stands. Plastic pollution, including nano, micro and macroplastics, plastic chemicals and air pollutants, are leaked and released along the full life cycle of plastics, starting with extraction of fossil carbon and biomass feedstocks, and production to plastic removal technologies. Plastic pollution directly and indirectly harms human and environmental health, as confirmed by decades of international research, including from the biggest plastic-producing countries. To achieve an effective treaty, the science highlights the following 6 priorities. First, a legally binding treaty with the scope to cover the full life cycle of plastics. Second, mandatory obligations to prevent plastic pollution at source. Third, adequate and accessible financial, technical and capacities to support to enable all countries to meet their treaty obligations. Fourth, safe and sustainable production and consumption, including phasing out groups of plastic chemicals and products of concern. Fifth, globally harmonised criteria for essential use, safety, sustainability and transparency to provide clarity to governments and businesses, enable efficient treaty implementation and incentivise innovative, trusted, safer and more sustainable materials and markets. Lastly, a legitimate and just treaty. The treaty's legitimacy hinges on contributions from expert groups with broad expertise and transparency, representation, and conflict of interest mitigation policies. This will also enable just transition. The science is undeniable.
I thank you very much. I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Alliance of West Speakers. Please, International Alliance of West Speakers, you have the floor.
No. Somos nosotros, no.
It's microphone 59.
Yes. Buenas tardes. Soy uno de los más de 40 millones de recicladores de todo el mundo. Una cifra que sigue creciendo junto con el crecimiento aparentemente imparable de los plásticos. La Alianza Internacional de Recicladores agradece la voluntad de los Estados miembros de seguir negociando esta semana un tratado sobre plástico que necesitamos ahora más que nunca. Acogemos con satisfacción el texto sugerido por el presidente en diciembre pasado como base para esta negociación. Sin embargo, tenemos serias preocupaciones con el texto actual que esperamos se resuelva esta semana. El artículo 10 sobre una transición justa se presentó como una disposición voluntaria en el texto más reciente, a pesar del apoyo abrumador de los Estados miembros a favor del que sea obligatorio. Disposiciones de transición justa debe volver a ser una disposición obligatoria, de lo contrario no se implementará. Además, no se puede lograr una transición justa sin un mecanismo financiero eficaz. Exigimos la creación de un nuevo Fondo Mundial independiente que no dependa de la estructura actual del JEF. Debería exigir contribuciones del sector privado, basándose en el principio de que quien contamina paga, siguiendo el modelo del Fondo de Cali. Debería garantizar un acceso predecible, directo y simplificado, con una gobernanza y rendición de cuentas transparentes. Además, debe reservar una parte sustancial para las necesidades identificadas por los recicladores, las cooperativas y otros grupos basados, considerándolos no como beneficiarios, sino como agentes de cambio. Una transición justa sin recicladores es basura, y una transición justa sin financiamiento obligatorio es simplemente injusta. Durante estos 3 años de la negociación...
Muchísimas gracias por su declaración. Y ahora, now I would like to give the floor to the International Engineering Association, and that will be microphone 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, my name is Greg Skelton, and I'm speaking on behalf of the International Council of Chemical Associations and the Global Partners for Plastic Circularity. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this intervention. Mr. Chair, the global plastics industry has been actively engaged throughout the INC process. We champion an agreement that is inclusive of countries, effectively combats plastic pollution, promotes the circularity of plastics, and enables society to continue to benefit from plastics. Circularity goes beyond recycling. It involves designing products for reuse and recyclability, improving collection and sorting systems, especially for the 2.7 billion people lacking access to waste collection, and advancing innovations that transform used plastics into new products. Over the course of the past 5 negotiations, industry has consistently shared our ambition and been clear on our positions, which are available on our website at plasticcircularity.org. We have heard and responded to concerns from governments by developing tools that demonstrate the industry's commitment to transparency, including the ICCA Plastics Additives Database, which provides details on regulation and use of the 4,549 plastic additives verified in commerce. And we continue to invest in innovations in product design, collection, recycling and reuse of plastics to accelerate the transition towards a circular economy. As the final INC session opens, there is a unique opportunity for alignment with governments and civil society, including the private sector, to address plastic waste in our environment. The perfect should not be the enemy of the possible. ICCA encourages governments to focus on common ground and deliver an agreement that is practical, implementable and achievable. Industry is eager to work in partnership with the governments to help solve the global challenge of plastic pollution while accelerating the transition to a more circular economy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank the International Council of Chemical Associations. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Chamber of Commerce, this mic 16. So it's the International Chamber of Commerce, microphone 16.
Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, my name is Raylene Martin and I speak on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the world's largest business organization. We thank the INC Secretariat for their tireless efforts and the Government of Switzerland for hosting us here in Geneva, a fitting location for international cooperation and multilateral progress. The global business community stresses the urgent need to conclude an effective and workable agreement that meets the UNEA 514 mandate and matches the urgency of the plastic pollution crisis. We are at a defining moment. INC 5.2 must deliver clear direction and a framework to accelerate action by all sectors toward a future free from plastic pollution. The world is watching, and the credibility of multilateralism depends on what we achieve here. It is imperative to agree now on the treaty's contours with a smart mix of complementary measures that have the right hooks to strengthen the agreement over time. In this regard, we highlight 4 priorities. First, a fully circular approach must be central. The treaty should guide product design for circularity, promoting reuse, recycling, and environmentally sound management. Waste management must be a core obligation with flexibility for national circumstances. Second, focus should be on plastic products with the highest risk of environmental leakage, based on a common evidence-based framework that is application-specific and considers national and socio-economic realities. Third, innovation is essential. The agreement must support new technologies and business models across the plastics value chain to enable rapid transformation and empower businesses of all sizes. Lastly, success hinges on effective means of implementation that support accelerated business action and take into account the needs of SMEs. This agreement must provide industry with the clarity and confidence to invest in
I thank you very much for your statement. Now I would like to give the floor to the coalition of NGOs from West Asia, and that's microphone 19.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegate, colleague, and friend, allow me to deliver my intervention in Arabic. سيد الرئيس، أنا ماري تراز سيف، ممثلة مجموعة المنظمات غير الحكومية في منطقة غرب آسيا، حيث يمثل التلوث البلاستيكي أزمة بيئية وإنسانية تهدد حياة الملايين. في هذه المناطق يسبب البلاستيك غير المعالج حرائق وتلوثاً ومعاناة إضافية. نحن بحاجة إلى اتخاذ إجراءات فورية. التلوث البلاستيكي لا ينتظر، لا يمكننا تأجيل هذه المفاوضات أكثر من ذلك. نطلب من الدول الأعضاء أن تكون مدافعة عن شعوبها وأن تضمن إتمام المفاوضات هنا في جنيف. نحن المجتمع المدني من غرب آسيا مستعدون لدعمكم في تنفيذ هذه المعاهدة. نحن واثقون من قدرتكم على الوفاء بالالتزامات. يجب أن تكون هذه المعاهدة أكثر من مجرد رمز، يجب أن تكون قابلة للتنفيذ وقادرة على إحداث تغيير، قائمة على العدالة والتضامن مع المجتمعات التي لا تستطيع تحمل مزيد من التأخر. نحثكم على التفكير في الأجيال الحالية والمستقبلية وحقها في العيش في بيئة نظيفة صحية ومستدامة. لا وقت للتأخير، نحتاج إلى معاهدة الآن. شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
And I thank you very much for your statement. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Engineering Associations, and will be microphone 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretariat, and thank you to the Government of Switzerland. My name is Conor Carlin, and I'm here representing the Society of Plastics Engineers, a global volunteer organization with 65,000 stakeholders around the world. We stand at the intersection of science, research, industry, and society, committed to advancing polymer innovation while promoting responsible management of plastics resources. Plastics have transformed the modern world by delivering lightweight, durable, and cost-effective solutions in medicine, food preservation, renewable energy, clean water, mobility, and countless other fields. These materials have been integral in reducing emissions, increasing energy efficiency, and improving the quality of life. We are equally aware, however, that the growing volume of plastic waste, mismanaged and polluting the environment, presents urgent challenges that must be addressed with integrity and urgency. As engineers, innovators, and problem solvers, we are uniquely positioned to develop the next generation of materials and technologies that enable greater recyclability, biodegradability, and resource efficiency. We believe that innovation must go hand in hand with responsibility. Our work is guided by a vision of circularity, where plastic products are designed with their full life cycle in mind, supported by robust collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure. We support scalable solutions from advanced mechanical and chemical recycling to closed-loop systems and data-driven waste traceability. We also recognize that no one single actor can solve this challenge alone. Collaboration across industries, governments, academia, and civil society is essential, and we actively promote open dialogue, knowledge sharing, and capacity building to ensure that all regions can benefit from equitable access to technology and sustainable solutions. The Society of Plastics Engineers reaffirms its commitment to being part of the solution, championing science-based policies, fostering innovation with purpose, and accelerating progress toward a future where plastics are used wisely, recovered efficiently, and managed sustainably. Materials and plastics are not the enemy. Misuse and mismanagement are. Let us engineer a better path forward. Thank you.
And I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Break Free from Plastics, and that's microphone 1, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Esteemed delegates, I am John Beard, Jr., and I'm speaking on behalf of the Break Free from Plastics movement and the United States Environmental Justice Delegation. I come to you from the belly of the beast in Port Arthur, Texas, a cancer cluster, thanks to the petrochemical industry. Port Arthur is on the front lines of toxic plastic pollution because of a history of discrimination against communities of color and low-income communities. This is a human rights issue, and it stretches all the way back to the dawn of European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Let's be clear. These negotiations have been captured by the fossil fuel and petrochemical industries. Their unchecked production of plastics is accelerating a crisis that jeopardizes the climate, biodiversity, human health, and the planet's ability to sustain life. Without decisive action and significant reductions in plastic production, the harm already experienced by countless communities like mine will only intensify. A treaty that does not cap plastic production, eliminate toxic chemicals, and ensure a just transition for those most impacted is a treaty destined to fail. We must confront the ongoing environmental racism experienced in communities like mine and stop the scourge of waste colonialism in the global South. We must reject toxic waste-to-energy schemes and polluting technologies like so-called chemical recycling, prioritizing instead development of safe, toxic-free reuse and refill systems, and the rights of waste pickers, indigenous peoples, and frontline communities. While we should be guided by consensus, when consensus cannot be reached, countries must have the ability to vote on substantive issues, ensuring that deadlocks do not continue to derail progress. While my community is on the front lines of environmental injustice and toxic pollution, micro and nanoplastics poison people no matter how far from the lines you may live.
I thank you very much for your statement. Thank you. Please, dear colleagues. Thank you, please. Thank you very much for sharing these interventions. And now I would like to invite the Secretariat to provide information on the timing and location of the meetings of the contact groups that we will start this afternoon at 3 p.m. Please, Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm the new schedule for today, CG Contact Group 1 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. in room 19. Contact Group 4 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. in room 18. Contact Group 2 will meet from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 18. And Contact Group 3 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 19. Thank you.
I thank you very much, the Secretariat, and we will be meeting, as I announced before, working with the Secretariat and the Bureau on the scheduling for today and the next days. And distinguished delegates, this brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. We have a lot of work ahead of us over these 10 days. Thank you, distinguished delegates, for being conscious of the time as we embark on completing the work of the INC at this resume session. Let's treat each other with sorry, please, dear colleagues. Oh, I see Ghana asking the floor. Please, Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
Could you please take a seat? We haven't finished the session yet. Please. Thank you. Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We kindly request that the information is repeated. Thank you.
Please, Secretariat.
Thank you. Just to note, this information will also be reflected on the website as well as on the mobile app. So I'll repeat more slowly. Contact Group 1 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. this afternoon in room 19. Contact Group 4 also from 3 to 6 p.m. this afternoon in room 18. Contact Group 2 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 18. And finally, Contact Group 3 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 19. I hope this clarifies. Thank you.
I thank you, Secretariat, and thank you, dear colleagues. And once again, please, let's treat each other with kindness and respect as we build a unified way forward. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.